Okay, everybody, welcome back. We're going to do some carburetor action here on the Cison L4 175. So now what I did was I blew up the directions there so you can see them. I'm going to zoom in on them. Hopefully, they're a little too zoomed there, but it doesn't matter. I'll back it out a little bit. Now, these show where your O-rings go on all your parts. So what I'm going to do is zoom out and pan down. We're going to go back up to here to the computer, and we're going to go through the packing layout, okay? So the carbs are basically 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, and 34. That's parts of your carb, your main bodies and needles and, you know, all that stuff. So now let's get back down to this. And we'll zoom in just a little bit there. So this is our parts tray. So we got 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34. Now I noticed the needles were similar to the same size, but I didn't measure them, but they actually have a place for 33 and 34 to go into. So that's cool. But one thing I did notice down here, if you looked on there, I'll zoom in on it, there was an overhead valve version of this engine that must have been thawed up there, you know, because I didn't get any of this. I don't know if it's grease for the lifters or whatever. I didn't get nothing in my blister pack over here. It's empty, you know, but I do have grease, and so I use like the marine red grease for wheel bearings and all that stuff, because it takes up a lot of heat and it actually lasts a long time. So let's figure out our O-rings, because our O-rings are a little confusing. Now I did take out the blister pack that they had in there, you know. Now they say here, they show you your O-rings and by size, and they show you your O-rings by application. So anyways, the two needles need two number 46s. It says 4 times 1, but looks to me as if that's where we're starting. So I'm going to break out the two needles, and I'm going to keep them separated because this will be 33, 34 down here. And we're going to need our bellow. Okay, that's the one right there. So we got this, we got everything. So now let's figure out which O-ring goes with what. Now there are size comparisons on here we can use, and that's what I'm going to do. So 46 is the smallest and 49 is the biggest. And it looks like there's multiple O-rings in here. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take them out and lay them out here, because they're different colors too. This is your smallest one right here. So I imagine that's the number 46, unless I go somewhere else. Let's see. Maybe not. Because there are a couple of really small ones that go into the cylinder head. So break these down by size comparison. So looks like 46 is the smallest. We have if you look on there, you can see what I just did. I'm matching the O-rings up by the size on the diagram there. So we have two of them. 1, 2. Oh no, that's actually a bigger one. Oh, 1, 2. So there's not 4 of them. There's only 2. All right. So we have 2 small ones in there, and then 2 bigger ones. So we'll take that out of the picture frame there. And we'll zoom back out again here. And we'll take the two smallest ones with my gigantic fingers. I just cut my nails, and I could use them right now for this. So gotta roll this thing on top. I could roll it up the bottom, but it would be, I don't want to go across the threads, you know what I'm saying? So once we figure this out, sideways across this thing. I may have to go over the threads. Well, let's do that. Let's go over the threads. I didn't want to do it this way, but it's easier to start small and go large. Okay, we got our O-rings on. This one here, when I opened up the blister pack here, they had 46, 47, 48, 49, which are all these little ones here. There was only one 49. It's this one. It's a little bit bigger, but there's also this massive one in here that was kind of stuck in there. I don't know where it goes. So we're going to keep those where they are. Now they say to take your throttle bellow here and put in number 33, which would be this one. Even though they are the same size, you can start that in there. Okay, we did that. Now we go to 29. You guys remember 29 is this one here, because 28 is the throttle body. 29 is this. Is your high-end inlet. So now they say number 34 O-ring goes on that one, so we'll see what number 34 is. Oh, number 34 needle goes in that, I'm sorry. So that's okay, that was pretty simple. So we'll just put that in there, number 34, like so. Now we got a 52 and a 19 coming up for this thing here. And let's see where those are. Not here. Maybe they're here. Yeah, we're looking at our blister pack here. 19's right here. And 52 is some kind of a shim. We'll get out 19. We'll go from there. Shows it's a short one, and I can see number 52 is already on the back. I've already dropped it on the floor. Hold on, I gotta go find it. Hold on. Okay, so I just tore my stove out of the wall to find number 19. Okay, and I'm gonna grab this thing with some pliers so it doesn't go anywhere, because there's two of these number 19s in there. This one here, as you can see, and this one here. Oh, there we go, that I dug out of my stove. Okay, that's a little gasket on the bottom there. But here's what I noticed after I tore it all out. Finally found it, and guess what? It's not even bored open. It's got this like nano hole in the thing there, or not even a hole. You can't even see through it. It's not even bored. So this thing went under the stove for nothing. So I got this one here, and I'm gonna grab it tightly so I don't lose it again. Now you can see this one, it has a hole all the way through it. So apparently the other one was not machined, and this one also has a gasket on the back too. So okay, so we're back on the build, guys. Sorry about that. This is what you go through sometimes, you know, when you're, like I say, when I got this engine, I said it's all uncharted territory for me. All right, so we got number 31 done here. Now we'll take our number 28, which is our throttle body, and they say to install this in one end. So I'm going to install it in one end here with the gasket on there, and then I'm going to have to readjust all this stuff. So like you say, looking at pictures sometimes really helps a lot. Now this here can only go in so far because now my throttle barrel is going to come in this side, so I can adjust this to whatever I need, and I can adjust my my high-end needle too. Actually, could use another gasket on there, but for now everything's cool. Now they say to put the chute, make sure the hole coincides, so the chute has got to be up like so. But I see something in the barrel that I need to clean out before we go too much further. There's a small piece of debris in there. Alright, so now we'll put that in this way, like so. Ta-da! Now the O-ring there. What I like to do with my O-rings is I like to use silicone shock oil to lubricate them things when I put them together. And I'm going to get some right now, so hang on. Now, when you put these things together dry, I don't know, they just don't play well. So I'm going to take a little of the silicone Traxxas shock oil here, and I'm going to lubricate that O-ring and that barrel really well, and I'm going to slide it in. Dunk, just like that. It went in so easy. So now you have to make sure your barrels line up here, and you also have to look for this groove right here. This groove right here is going to be your throttle adjustment. So I think it's got to go in this way. Now, all there, and we need the M2 screw number 10, which is in this blister pack right here. 8, 9, 10. I'll dig that out, and I'll try not to drop it under the stove. And there's actually a spring on there too that they don't mention, because you know, with every throttle adjustment there is a spring. Let me bang this down a little bit to see if they mention it. When installing, all the valve screw must be aligned with the chute to avoid crushing the throttle valve. Okay. However, they don't tell you about the spring that goes on your detention, your idle screw. So you put the spring on first. That's in there, because all us RC guys know we need that spring. Now I don't know how this is going to actually made up with that groove, because on all my toy-in carbs I had to tear them apart and sand that groove down. I'm going to put this in by hand to see. Wow, it's really smooth. I am really impressed with that. That is really smooth. Look in there. No binding, no nothing. And that is nice. I'm a happy boy. Happy days. Okay, so we got that. Cool beans. Now, so our carb's done. I'm going to take a break and grab a burger. And I will be back, guys, with the next part of the assembly process is going to be, we get to put in our cylinder jugs. We get to put in our cylinder jugs next, because we got the carb body together, and we can actually, you know what, maybe, I want to see if I'm missing something here, because I did blow this up a little bit. Nope, I'm not missing nothing. So the carb idle adjustment spring with the screw was not mentioned. So be careful of that when you put it together. and I'm gonna leave mine loose, so when I do get it on there I can adjust where I want my throttle, my high end. You know, I may put more gaskets on here to turn this around to bring it down, or like this maybe, depends on how it's going to sit on the intake. I don't know. I don't want my throttle needle up or out exposed to any damage. So alright guys, loved all. I'll be back with the putting the O-rings in, because that looks like it could be a little bit of a challenge. So I'm going to do one off camera, and then I'll do one on camera for you. So stay tuned, and I'll catch you later, man. Adios. Okay, now we've got one cylinder in, and it's not really setting as flush as I'd like it to be, and I don't know if it's because there's a little burr down inside here or not. I don't know. But so there's 3 O-rings, number 50 per cylinder. So take your valves out, line them all up off to the side because they're all numbered, and push your cylinder out with your finger, just like that. And what I did was I made sure this edge was cleaned off here, there's nothing on there, and I put a little silicone chocolate on there, because this stuff is, it really helps assemble stuff, especially O-rings. It keeps them smooth. And do the whole cylinder, do it all. Take one O-ring, slide it down, and seat it in the little groove. Now the other O-rings you're going to have to kind of fish in from the bottom. I did the first one dry because it helped it go in so much easier. There is a water jacket inside here that is a little tricky to get into. So you want to go through the first groove into the second groove in there. My lighting is probably really bad, but there's 2 grooves for these O-rings, and once you get them in there, just kind of roll your screwdriver around a little bit, and you can put your finger in there too from the top side to help push it back into the groove. So they are a little bit difficult, to say the least. Come on. It was so easy in the first one. Now that I'm on camera, everything seems to take a million years to do. So anyways, it's really nice working with you guys tonight. You've never really seen me you know, working on a build. You know, I always come up with the builds, and then, you know, I show them to you guys, but we've never really worked together. So this will be the first time together we're on camera working together. And actually, I have not sworn once, so that's a good thing. You know, that is a good thing. Because usually when things start going haywire, I start voicing some language. Yeah, you know, I'm an auto guy, you know what I mean? And that's what we do. That's how we express our language. And the whole thing about this whole project is it is very tedious to put it together, but I think it's going to be really awesome when it's done, because we have waited for one of these for a long time. Okay, so that's coming in the groove. I put the top groove on the inside on first. Alright, so you look in there, you see the 2 grooves in there, and then there's a water jacket with kind of a recessed area around it for water to go. Now I just stuck my finger in there and just kind of put these in there nice and smooth. Now the problem is when you go to put the cylinder in, okay, you need to juice it up a lot, and juice up the O-rings because they're going to need that little bit of lubrication to get through them. And when you're pushing them in, make sure you don't pinch them off. Be very gentle. Slide it in the case like so, and then you'll see it coming in at the bottom down here. Alright, you see that? Now you may have to turn this a little bit and put your fingernail in there, or a little tool like a screwdriver, to kind of keep that within the groove. So what I'm doing is I'm putting pressure on the top like this with my finger, and you see it just dropped in there. Now it dropped to the second groove, so what I'm going to do is take the screwdriver. Now it's already lubed up. I'm just going to roll around this thing and push that groove back in there. And then I'm going to push down. Ta-da! You see how simple that was? Now if you're looking there, now we have 2 cylinders, 3 O-rings each cylinder. So, and we have the top, you see, right there. So, alright guys, I'm going to finish putting the rest of them in, and then we'll come back to something new, so stay tuned, man. Hey guys, what's up? Alright, it's Double Deuce back. I wanted to point out a mistake that I made putting this together, and it ain't because of that thing right there. I just had to sit down after I figured it out because of that thing. When I put my O-rings on, I didn't see that groove right there, upper inside. I thought it was going to sit in here in the top, but it doesn't. You have to put the upper O-ring in that groove right there, and you see the piston's still on there with the rings and everything. I just pulled the sleeve right out, and the cool thing is they chamfered the bottom of it too. They didn't even have to do this, but you know, that was an extra step they did that's going to help me put this back together. So I'll be able to slide this right down in again. The rings will compress and everything will be cool. So we're still on the build, guys, and I'm having more updates, so take it easy. Okay guys, let's get to the crankshaft. So I got the front bearing, alright, which was number 24. That's your front bearing, and it's a step in it. But they say there's a 1mm adjustment shim to use if you have slop. So now we got our front lower gear, would be number 44. Let's go up to the top and check this out, because I'm excited to get to the center bearing here. And so 44 would be the smallest one here. That would be this one here. That's your crank, that's your idler, that should be your cam. So bust back down here. Okay, so here we are. Now, one thing I noticed about this fulcrum bearing, they call it, the crankshaft center bearing, if you notice, I'm going to show this to you, it's got a number engraved on it there. So make sure that number matches up, you know, and don't turn this around. If you drop it or something or it comes apart, don't turn around. Make sure that number comes up all the way across like so you can read it. It'd be a 148 148 or a B something. Hard to read on camera, but just make sure the number matches up when you put the crank on. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a little bit of grease, because that's what I do. Just stick it together. So it's going to be kind of tricky, but I know that I do have my I may have to take the crank back out again, I don't know, but I want to put some of this in there to lube it up, just as a starter insurance, if you know what I'm saying. Don't need a whole lot. So now, guess what? It goes both ways, but I'll put it this way so the numbers match up here. And I'll put it on the crankshaft, and we'll stick the crankshaft in the engine. Caught on my towel there. So now there's the center bearing. Now you'll notice it has a little set screw area up here to set in. And so let's put this puppy in here. Oh, I can't do that yet because I already jumped a step when I was showing you guys the size of the block, and I put the back thrust plate on there. Boy, that's a tight fit in there. Woohoo! Yeah, buddy. All right, now let's turn this thing there so it lines up here. And we'll see how it goes. This is all uncharted. Oh, look at that. It fell right in. Oh my God. That is like silky smooth. I'm really impressed with that. Wow. I am really impressed with that. Cison, I love you, man. I love this. This is good. This is going to be great. So now I'll put the back plate on. First I got to find the screw to go in there. And so number 58 would be the screw. However, I don't quite know where that is because I didn't check it out. Oh, it's right here. How hard is this, huh? It has a nice little screw there. Wow, I got stuff everywhere over here now. This is your screw, and that goes in there. And you're going to probably want to put just a little bit of Loctite in there and wiggle this back and forth so it fits. And that's how it goes in. So there's your center bearing, and look how smooth that is. And it don't even have a back bearing on it yet. There's no movement in this at all. So, all right, guys, we're going to go to the next step. So stay tuned. If you want to take an intermission, grab some popcorn, your favorite beverage, your favorite smoke, whatever you need to do, and I'll be back, buddy. Okay, guys, let's go to the next step. We got the crankshaft in, everything's cool. I kind of jumped ahead a little bit there on you guys. I apologize for that. But we're going to put the camshaft in now. Now, the camshaft is very, very straightforward, okay? In your little packet here, you'll see these tiny little Phillips head screws. Okay, I believe they are a 2.5 millimeter. The 5s are a 3. So I have them laid out here on the table. I'm going to try to get in there. This is a small one here that goes in the bell housing. These are the big ones that go in the bell housing. These are 3 millimeters. But getting back to the camshaft, I'll zoom in on this so you guys can check it out. They say to install the end bearing first, then put the camshaft through the block. I had trouble with that. It didn't want to play well going through the block. So I'm going to take this back plate off here because I haven't got there yet. You can put the bearing on back here without a problem. You see I greased it. Slide the cam in, but put your front bearing and the number 56 3 millimeter shim on there. Put that on there with your bearing and just slide your camshaft in. You cannot put the gear on until it's in because you have to put in these 2 little screws here, top and bottom, to hold the bearing in place. So there's 2 number 6 screws there you put in there, and your 38 is the front bearing, the 54 is the shim. Wait a minute, is it 54 or 56? Oh, it's another shim, yeah. 54 is another shim you put on the front side of the bearing. So it's all learning process here. So I got them in there, and it is a super tight fit in this gear in here. And actually mine rubs just a little bit, and I'll show you guys everything's working there. See, now you see the timing marks are straight up. on the crankshaft and the camshaft straight up. Now this here, they get to just a little pilot shaft here. You put that in there, you got a little plain tip screw on it, you screw it in with a screw, put a little Loctite on it, you'll be good. Now, and then you can adjust your timing marks accordingly, you know, after you get it in there, because they show you, you know, put a little Loctite on that little shaft. You got your camshaft, your crankshaft down here. I know they kind of bunch the words over top the pictures. And here's the deal. They talk about the shim, okay? Now, I'm not sure what 34 is. I think it's the shim, which is in your box of stuff there, or a bag of stuff, your hoses and whatnots here. You're gonna have this little shim here. It's just a little tiny Teflon gasket that goes in between your bell housing and your block, and I think it seals up, keeps stuff from leaking out, so that's not a big deal. So I got there. Now the next step is doing the pistons. All right, so they you know, they have you kind of jump back and forth here, and they give you these really cool tech tips over here, okay, like the timing, gear position, crankshaft, keyway are vertically upwards at this time, and the first cylinder, counting from the gear side, is at the top dead center of the valve. So when what they're saying is when this is up, your crankshaft should be, the first journal should be all the way to the top dead center. Okay, this will be your number 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, as it goes down the block there. So anywho, back out there, I'm going to put this on to keep everything kind of in place with the shim and the gaskets and all that stuff. Just temporarily for now. That way, you know, things ain't gonna move. I don't think I really have to remove this for any reason whatsoever. I used the suggested just the rubber rear main seal on the thing instead of the one with the brass pilot bearing, because they said as a suggestion that if you have to take it back apart, which I might do because I'm going to have to check everything out, you know, get it what do you want to say, that kind of get it broken in, I should say, or something like that. And let's put this on this first. Sometimes you learn the hard way. So it should be like that, because there's a rubber seal here that this has to go over, and I did put a little grease on here to kind of hold everything together. There's a rubber O-ring that they already gave me with the bearing, and that is the rear seal that I put in there. And I'm going to put a little grease in there right now just to lube it up. Hope I'm not boring you guys. Now, they do supply these Allen wrenches in the kit, and they're really kind of important, because when you get your camshaft in, right, so now I got everything lined up there, all the holes are lined up. When you put your camshaft in, you have to put the main gear on here afterwards, because you've already locked the shaft into the base. Use your little Allen wrench here. Don't put your idler gear in yet. Just turn your top dead center to the side here. Tighten this up so it matches the groove, because it's just a set screw. There's not a pin in these. And they put a set screw in them to make it easier to tear it apart. Get in there, a little Loctite on there, snug it up, you're good. And then line up your 2 marks here and here, and then put in your idler pulley gear, or your idler gear in there, or whatever, and you should be fine. So now I'm going to throw in a couple of screws in the back here, They say, really important, these are all 3 millimeters. For some reason, they want you to put this in after your rods and everything else. I don't know why, but they show here. This is number 5. These are your 3 millimeters. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the one in the upper corner up here is an M2.5, which you have one extra for that they supply you in the kit. And like I say, I went with option 1, not option 2. You can always go back to that later. Nice thing about this kit is they give you options, which I think is wicked cool, because you know, most engines you have one option, and that's, you know, whatever's in the kit if stuff's there. Because I've had kits where stuff was missing, so it's kind of totally stops the build. But anyway, and then you get to your flywheel. You have an idler gear that you have to mount first for your flywheel. You know, your starter flywheel, I should say. And then you have your main flywheel. So anyway, so I'm going to get back to busy here, and we're going to do some pistons here, because I want to see how these pins are tapered and how they fit. Because the way I see it is, if the pin is tapered on one end bigger than the other end, then the connecting rod, the hole has to be tapered too, I would think. I would hope, anyway. So, but like I say, I'm going to do the 2 ring first and go from there. And so I'll be back, guys. So stay tuned, and I'll catch up here later. Okay, so we got our rings and our piston. I'll probably do this first and then put the connecting rod on later. I'm going to try to make this so you guys can see without my fingers in the way. There's a little split in the ring there, and I want to get that little thing hooked over the first hole first, and then just kind of gingerly roll it around in the groove and let it take up its space and let it snap in. Because like I say, it's so easy to break one of these, and then you'll have to wait to get another one. So usually, if you can keep them things seated into the groove, they'll walk right around and pop right in. So there we go, we got the first one on there. Now I'm going to take the little screwdriver or a pick or something, and I'm going to move it to the second ring down below. Alright, now I'm just going to walk this thing around here in the groove, and it's going to pull that out, and it's going to let it jump to the second ring. You don't have to put a lot of tension on it, you just have to put a little bit, and it jumped back in again. That's okay. You can't stretch these things out either, because they'll snap. They're very, very, very brittle. I know on my Conley V8 I had broke a couple of rings from thrashing the engine. So when you break a ring, when it's inside the engine, it ends up scarring your cylinder walls really bad. We're almost there. Almost there. Look at that. Alright, so that one went in. I jumped up from the top to the bottom. And these are the little holes I was talking about in the bottom of the piston there that lubricate it. So now we'll put the top one in. Which is easy to do, it just snaps around like so. And then we'll put our piston pin together here. I like to mark these with marker at first. And I only put the oil inside the upper small end of the connecting rod. They don't really say how to put your pistons in and which direction and all that stuff, so it's go the other side. Going this way on this side, because they say if it goes in snug, you don't need to put any Loctite in there. There's no need for it. But slide this in like so, and this does fit nice and snug. So what I do is I'll take a bigger screwdriver here, but I'll tap the pin in. And then I'll take the screwdriver, pop it in so it's equal on both sides. Go just a little bit more. But when you're hitting on stuff like that, make sure you got something soft down to cushion the blow. And don't overkill it. There. Okay. Now I'm going to get up here and show you guys what we got. There's the piston to the rod. They're pressed in. Now they say the ring openings here do them 180 degrees apart. So I'm going to put mine right over the pin on both sides. I just slide this around like so. So now you have the top gap is on the pin side, and the bottom ring gap is on the pin side. So, and everything flows freely. Everything's good. So I'm going to finish putting these together, and then we'll get to the directions of what they say next, and we'll go from there, guys. So I'll be back with another segment. Okay, everybody, welcome back to the continuation of the build of the L4-175. So I didn't really go ahead on too many things. I kind of wanted to share everything with you guys. So when we left off, we were at the pistons, installing the pistons on the thing, and they said that the piston pin bores on both sides are different in size. So I thought that, you know, that the pins would be tapered. That's what I thought. But they're not. The piston pins are exactly the same size all the way through, because I was worried about the connecting rod having a tapered side and a not a tapered side. But it fits perfectly through both sides of the rod. See, it's floating in there. So what it is, it's inside your piston. One hole is slightly smaller than the other. So what I did was, what they suggest is just put the pin in. If it goes in one side loosely and the other side tightly, that's tight there. So you turn it around, and then you push it through this way, and you have to press the pin in. I found out I used a little bit of silicone shock oil on everything to kind of get everything together, and so everything went good there without a problem. And I got one of the things together. You see, I always mark the rods, you know, even though right here there is a small little dimple in the side of the rod where the marker is there, and of course they got a number 1, Now, the rings are going to be a little tricky if you're going to put the rings on here. Be very careful. I grabbed just a minute, tiny screwdriver to help put them on. And what I did was I put the top ring on first, and then I took it and pulled it apart and jumped it to the second slot, and then kind of fished it around with a screwdriver. Then I put another ring back in the top groove, you see. So you put one ring on in the top first and then jump it to the bottom, and then put your other ring there. Now I'm not using the rubber O-rings. They say that causes a lot of friction and it makes it hard to turn over. So I'm just going to put one of these pistons together for you and show you how I did it. And I'll probably turn the camera around and zoom in on it so you can see it's a little tedious. You don't want to break a ring because they only give you, you know, enough for the engine, and that's it. And if you did break one, then you'd have to resort to the silicone rubber O-ring, I guess, on the bottom. But let's put one of these together now, because we're actually getting to the point now where the camshaft's in it, it's timed, the crankshaft's in it, and looks like next we'll see what's up on the directions, but we'll be coming up on the valve body pretty soon, so, and the lifters and stuff. But the this right here is where the dial calipers come in. When you don't understand something that they're saying, okay, for instance, I was confused on, I thought the pin was tapered. You can actually measure the pin on both ends, and I come up with 399, 399 each side, 399, 399. So everything is the same. So that's cool. This is, like I say, going to come in handy because when you put your lifters together, you got to screw them together, the top and the bottom, and that's where they want you to use one of these to set them. So anywho, let's continue on, and we'll go from there. Shut this thing off. I don't waste my battery. So I didn't lube the rings up when I put them on. I put them on dry. Then I'll lube them afterwards, for the simple fact that it's going to be easier, you know, when you start adding a lot of slippery to them, something this small. Yeah, I got to put on my spectacles to do this, and I'm going to get some light on here, so it's going to be a little bright. And I'm going to turn this thing around, and we're going to put a piston. Okay, guys, put the camera over here a little bit so you can see my mug. I got one piston in, number one. And it's in. Now, the way I assembled mine is kind of like I did my L400. Okay, if you noticed, there's the little dimple. I put a marker on that, and then I marked the back side of the dimple. So that way, when I put them together, I want all my dimples facing forward. And I don't think it really matters that much, but now don't put them together dry. I'm going to put a piston in here real quick, and I'm just going to dab just a little bit of the silicone oil on the rings, and then grab both rings with your fingers and then just kind of twist them inside. That way they're not out of sync. That way there you can look back and say, okay, my grooves are here, and this one moved. That's okay. There we go. So my grooves are to the pin, 180 degrees apart. Now, I like to place mine where the little notch goes forward. So stick your piston in there that direction and slide it in. Now, don't beat the piston in. Just very, very carefully put a little pressure down on it, and you can use your fingernails like that to squeeze them in, because they was nice enough to taper the top edges of the cylinders, so they have a little taper here, so it helps the rings fall right into place. Now I'll push this down and jockey it around the crankshaft. They're easy to turn once you get them in the cylinder. Very easy to turn. So now there we are. It's mated with the rod. I always bring them down so you can work out here, not up inside the engine block. Now this is where the little magic marker trick comes in. You can see now the mark I put on the side is at the top. So I'll take a little Loctite on my bolts, and I got my marker at the top. Just put a little bit on your threads. You don't need a whole lot. Oh yeah, need a little more coffee in me this morning. More shaky. Start your top bolt first. Excuse me. And your second. Before you crank them down, just snug them a little bit. I already put oil on the journal, so if anybody seen that. So it's running pretty free now. That's a good thing. So I'm going to do the other two, and the bottom should be wrapped up. So stay tuned for more, guys. Okay, so we got our flywheel and our one-way bearing in there. Now, just like they say, the number of the bearing goes on the shallow side of the boss. So when it's in, because this goes against the block here, when it's in and the starter goes to turn it, the motor turns counterclockwise, it locks it, and this here is free. So once the motor's running, it'll just run free. But that locks it, so we're good. We're in. I hope that little trick of freezing the bearing and warming up the gear, you don't have to use a torch. You could, like I say, that's basically what I did was I took some rubbing alcohol and cleaned out the inside here, because there's like a shipping residue on here to keep it from corroding, and I just took a little Loctite and lubed it up, and I just basically had to lightly stick it on there and tap it in. So but it was pretty tight with the shipping oil that was on it. That's all. So you won't even need to heat it up. Just clean it real good. So I hope that helps, guys. I'm going to go on to the next part of the build, and we'll go from there. So okay, guys, we got an update on the starter counter gear here. The directions aren't very clear, but I kind of figured it out. They say here the small starting motor screw has to be put in before the install of the gear. So in your number 1 slot, take 2 of these and put them in the holes first. And I'm glad I kind of stepped ahead and read ahead, because there's a pin that goes in here for this gear to ride on in the case, and there's no mention of that. It says here, number 41, before installation, please find the gasket with the thickness of 2/1000 in the inner hole in grid 51. So I went to grid 51, and that is where all your pump stuff is here. Where's it at here? Grid 51. We're just here a minute ago. Well, within this grid 51, trying to figure out the numbers again. 43. Oh, 50, 51. And here in this lower corner grid where you have all your shims and stuff for your pumps and everything, the gasket at James Holmes. It was over here. It was a small, you know, like a Teflon clear gasket. You can barely see it. So search in your box here. And what I had found out was there's a pin, I think it's number 14, I think 12 went in the front. But this pin here has a plain tip screw slot on it that fits inside this gear here. So you have to put that pin in there with some Loctite first, then put in your two starter screws, then you can put this over top of it, because there's no room to get the screws in after the flywheel's in. So at least that's what they're saying. So I'm going to attempt to put these in now, and then I'm going to try to assemble everything else here. But I wanted to mention that little idler pin there that this counter gear goes on is not mentioned in the directions that I've seen anywhere. If somebody sees them in there, point them out to me. But they show, one photo they show the screws in place. The other photo they don't show anything. They show the flywheel going on, how to put the flywheel on. But if you notice, there's no starter gear behind it. So anyways, we're going to continue on to the next step. Okay, we got a correction here, guys. I just learned something new. You can't put the pin in first. I did put my starter screws in place. The pin and that little shim, the pin has a boss on the end here, so the gear does not come off. So you have to put the pin on through the gear, then put your little Teflon seal or gasket at the back, then install the thing into the engine block. So that's what I'm going to do right now. Hopefully I can get a bigger screwdriver here with a little bit of tighter fit. Oh yeah, definitely. Whoop, that's what I didn't want to do. I don't want to lose that little shim. Now, I already put Loctite in this hole. That's going to be a little difficult here to start. And then just tighten it up. Let the Loctite do its thing. Don't over tighten it, just snug it. Now that gives that gear a home that ain't gonna come off. It'll move around, but it ain't coming off. Now, when you put your starter inside there, you already have your screws in place for your starter. You see they're already in there, and the gear runs free. Now you see the gear actually overlaps that screw just a little bit on the top there, but if you pull the gear forward, you'll be able to get the screw in there if it falls out. Hope that helps. On to the next one. Looks like it's going to be the flywheel and the both flywheels, actually, the gear and the other one. So I got to dig out the pieces for that, and we'll go from there. Okay, I got a pointer here. I had a rough time trying to line up the inner keyway to the one-way bearing. So I had to remove the bearing out of the flywheel and then try to line it up as perfect as I could to get it on that shaft. Then I had to put the flywheel back over the bearing. But always remember, when it should freewheel this way, and then when you turn it counterclockwise from the back, it should turn the crankshaft. So it does do that. But just a tip, you might want to put the bearing in your gear, make sure it fits in here first, take it out, and then place it in over the crankshaft, over the keyway, then slide this right back over top of it. Now, if you have problems, they do give you two 4mm screws here, which I just dug out of my junk box, and you can remove the flywheel either by pulling it, or if it's too tight, you just turn the screws in little by little by little, and they'll start walking it out like a puller. So it's cool that they added that, because I had to use it once already to rescue this. So anyways, I'm back on the build. I'm going to use the expansion thing they got here, and then put my flywheel on like so. Now this here, you're supposed to keep it as flat as possible, and you're supposed to tighten these one at a time. Don't tighten one up, because it'll cock it sideways and then your flywheel will wobble. You want it to be evenly tightened, and I'm going to put a little Loctite in them too, just so they don't back out. But so we'll be back with some more, guys. Okay guys, we're down to the valves now. I just put one in. I got the camera zoomed in here. I'm going to try to do this where hopefully you can see it. I'm going to put that one in right there. It's not that hard, but it's a little tricky. What I ended up doing was putting some tape down just to kind of secure the valves so they don't go nowhere. Now I'll take a little spring. Got in the kit there. Slide it over your valve. Lock it down there real good, like so. Then you grab one of these little valve keepers here, or valve collars, and I have to take a little screwdriver. I'm trying to stay out of the way here. I have to take a little screwdriver, put it down. Now make sure the recess is down, because you got to put a clip in there. Once you get that in there like that, get it over the valve, and then take another little screwdriver and push it down beyond the keeper area. That little boss thing right there ain't helped me out any. Probably should have had the screwdriver switched around here. But once I get it over that little lock right there like that, push it all the way down and grab one of your little clips. That's your pliers. One of these. And then just lock it in that little groove they got right there. They're gonna work with my screwdrivers in the way, so I gotta go in this way. This is fun. Keep dropping it. Now hold tension in on it and let the spring go. Now you can see how it sets in there. It just locks in that little tiny groove there with a little C-clip. So there's two of them in. I'm going to finish those up, and then we'll get back to some more. Any questions, comments, feel free. Hey guys, what's up? Okay, we're doing the intake and exhaust manifold, okay? And they don't quite center themselves over the hole. You can see there's some gap in there, big time gap. So, and there's nothing in the instructions over here that says anything about putting any O-rings in there, but I did notice I do have extra O-rings that they put in the kit. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them. So I'm going to try to put those on the intake side, I guess. I did have some trouble with the oil pump because one of my shafts was not there. And like I say, my fitting for the bottom there, it's not drilled out, so I'm gonna have to find one of those. And kind of a weird thing, they want you to glue the pulleys on with Loctite. I thought that was just kind of cornball, you know. I mean, you think that the pulley's going to take a lot of stress here, and you know, think that they would at least have a keyway or a set screw or something in there, especially for the oil pump, because if the oil pump slides on there, it's not going to oil itself. But so far I made a lot of headway here. you see I figured out my upper O-ring problem for my cylinders. I got that fixed real quick, and now I'm just assembling the outside of it. I did get it to turn over, so everything was good there. But right now I'm just kind of working on this seal. They do have a recess in here for the O-rings that you can see in there. You see a little recess that are in these things there? You can put O-rings in there. And I suggest you do it because it ain't going to seal itself without an O-ring. So it'll have an air leak, so you won't be able to pull the fuel in. So it doesn't matter about the exhaust; they can leak all over the place. But I'm still gonna try to retrofit them in there. So, anyways, guys, we'll be back for more.